Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Oxygen XML Live experience. My name is Aline Bello, and as usual, I will be your host for today's live webinar, which is another episode from our ongoing series working with DITA in Oxygen. And this one is titled Quick Start with the DITA Startup Project. As you might know, Oxygen XML Editor provides the ability to organize your data resources in projects. The DITA Sample Project is a best practice example that shows how data content can be organized to provide a scalable and flexible project structure. But to tell us more about this, I invited my colleague Alex Gitiano, development lead at Synchrosoft and DITA Evangelist, to join us in just a few moments. But before that, let me recap the useful information that you need to know when it comes to the Oxygen Live events. As always, all of our events are being recorded, so today's event makes no difference. After the webinar comes to an end, the recording will be made available on the event page on our site, oxygenxml.com, along with Alex's presentation slides and samples. And also, I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel titled Oxygen XML so you can watch the rest of our recordings along with this one that will be uploaded tomorrow. Another important aspect is that as we go along, we encourage you to ask us questions by using the questions panel from the GoToWebinar interface, where behind the scenes, we will have our colleague Radu Coravu to assist us by answering to all of your questions in real time. So with this being said, I will invite to the stage Alex Gitiano and also wish him good luck. Hi, Alex.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for attending this webinar. Thank you, Aline, for your kind introduction. As my colleague Aline already set up the stage, you have an idea about the things that we will see in this presentation. The project concept in Oxygen, it's not something new, but we discovered that many of our users are unaware of the benefits that an Oxygen project brings. So this is another reason why we created the DITA Startup Project and why we set up this webinar. So a quick outline of today's topics. We'll begin by presenting the concepts of an Oxygen project and project files, and like I said, what benefits they bring. And afterwards, for the bigger part of our presentation, we'll take a look at the DITA Startup Project structure. And also have a look at the customizations contained within and some sharing ideas, because obviously there's not one person working on documents, there's an entire team and they all should have the same unified experience. But why does the unified setup matters? Well, there are various aspects. For example, one of them is the layout of the application. Every member of the team should have specific side views that are helpful for that particular project. Like, for example, if you're using DITA, then you probably need the DITA reusable components view, or maybe specific toolbar actions. Because although Oxygen tries to be as intuitive as possible, it's not possible, for us to tailor it on everyone's needs. right? So maybe in a company they want to add new toolbar actions or remove from the existing ones which should not be used by that particular team. Next, you have all the settings that Oxygen provides. For example, the formatting and indenting options are quite important if you work with a version control system, because you want when the members of the team save the document, you don't want one of them to indent differently and then you'll see fake changes in the version control system. Also, obviously, dictionaries, maybe learned words should be shared across the entire team. Framework customizations, I've grouped here things like changes made to the author mode, the visual editing mode in Oxygen, the appearance of the applications, maybe some new actions defined in the author mode, and also the style guide. Every company has its own set of rules on how to write content, how to write the documentation, and these rules, as we'll see later on, can be automated and enforced with Schematron. So this is basically what an Oxygen project is. It's a configuration in which you make all these settings. You have the layout, you have these frameworks, customization, you have the settings, the options set to the proper values, and the way it usually works is that one member of the team, maybe a project manager, or maybe it can be any other member that has a bit of technical skills, creates this setup, and afterwards every member of the team will have this unified setup. The only thing they need to do is open that Oxygen project. And what the project template is, well, it's just like a document template. You create document templates to be used as starting points for when people create new documents. They contain the minimum or the required set of content, of markup, of, if we talk about XML in them. So they can, you can speed up document creation that way. And a project template, it's just that. It's like a starting point for projects. But they do not contain just content. It's also structure of resources. If we take a look at some of our sample project templates. Project templates is basically an archive, a zip archive. It has this, you have to use this special extension so that Oxygen identifies it and treats it as a project template, the ZXPR. And inside this archive, you have the XPR file. You can take a look. You have the XPR file, the project configuration file, and various resources used by that project. How this works in Oxygen? Well, in the project view, you can say new project, and then you'll see all the detected project templates. The built-in ones are these two, the Sample DITA Project and the Startup DITA Project. We'll focus and we will present the second one, the Startup DITA Project. So we choose a location where to save it. We can give a name to the project, and then we hit create. And soon after, we'll get all that structure that you've seen in the archive. So now let's have a look at what at the structure of the project. So you have, so what we tried to do with this DITA Startup project was to put together a number of best practices recommendation that we've encountered in the DITA ecosystems, and we've used them in this startup project. So for example, in the topics folder, this is where you put all the DITA topics. And similarly, you have the images folder, which contains all the images. You put them here in the images folder. Next, you have, so the topics. Right now, it's just one sample topic, but here is where you create new topics. The images, just one image in it as well. And the reusable, this is where you should create your warehouse topics. It's which is a concept. So in DITA, it is advisable when you reuse content to avoid reusing between any two topics, because you might create so-called spaghetti references in which the topics are so tightly coupled that it is a nightmare to manage and to keep those references in sync. So to avoid these spaghetti references, there's a best practice that says to put all the reusable blocks in dedicated topics, like this one over here, and they are called warehouse topics. And you only the blocks from these warehouse topics, only these will be reused. And the Oxygen, there's a handy view called reusable components. And what happens is that Oxygen will automatically detect all of your reusable components. If we take a look inside this warehouse topic, we see we have this reusable node here, and it's presented in automatically in the DITA reusable components side view. So you can just click insert and you reuse it. And the way Oxygen knows to find these warehouse topics is it goes through your map and structure, and it looks at the processing role attribute set on topic graphs. And if the processing role is resource only, then it considers it to be a warehouse topic. And also, the DITA reusable components will pick up the images, but well, actually not only the images, but also audios or videos. And you have a dedicated tab for them, so you'll see their how they look like now, so you can identify them easier. And there's also a search field here. In my case, I just have one of each, so I don't have trouble finding a specific usable component. But if there are hundreds of them or even more, then these filters are quite handy. Okay, the main files. So again, if we look in the project, you'll notice this green entry here. It says main files. This is it's a logical folder, and the resources you place here, Oxygen will consider them as being the entry points of your DITA projects. And in this case, the main DITA map is already placed here. And what you gain is that whenever you're renaming or moving topics or other resources, Oxygen will automatically update the references to those resources starting from the main files, right? So I can go and rename a topic, or maybe move an image, maybe just to subfolders, and Oxygen will take care not to create broken references inside my DITA maps. So the settings saved at project level, there are quite a few. If you go to options, preferences, you'll notice this P icon in the toolbar. If you click it, there will be a filtering performed, and you'll notice a number of preferences pages that have this annotation as well and are bold. These pages contain settings, values that are saved in the project. So like I said, everyone opening this XPR file, this project file, will then have the same Oxygen settings. In this case, you see here there's a custom learn word location. So this one over here. And there's also something set in the spell check page as well. So this one, this file here contains the learned words, and as a person learns a new word, this goes here in the in this file. On the publishing side, let's see what this startup project contains. Well, you have a DITA Open Toolkit project file already sketched up. And it's here in the publishing directory. So the DITA Open Toolkit project file, it's a way for you to define all of your deliverables in one place, in one configuration. So the way it goes, it's you define one or more contexts. Context is basically a DITA map together with the DITA val file, but in this case there's no filtering already defined, so this one is missing in the startup configuration. And afterwards, a deliverable is, for example, my project to web help responsive, or my project to PDF, and whatever output format you desire. And as you may know, in Oxygen, if you want to publish your DITA map, you go to the DITA Maps Manager, and here on the toolbar, there's the configure transformation scenario. A scenario is basically a configuration to obtain a specific output, and then you select what kind of output you want and you press apply. Well, with a DITA Open Toolkit project file, things are easier. That you basically can publish your DITA map to all deliverables with just a click of a button. So you see, you go on the toolbar, there's this configure transformation scenario action, and then you have a choice between either publishing all deliverables, like so, and click apply associated, or you have the option to select which deliverable you want to obtain and click OK. And the transformation runs in the background. You have this little progress tree here on the bottom of Oxygen. This little icon here, it's like an Easter egg. If you click it, you'll get more information, more log about what goes under the hood. And there's also a publishing template. A publishing template, and it's this one over here, publishing template .zip. And if we take a look in the Open Toolkit again, Open Toolkit project file, you notice that this publishing template is being used for the PDF and for the web help transformation. I think my transformation is done, so we can have a look at the PDF as well. Yep. Right. So the publishing template, it's basically a customization for your output, both for it can contain customization both for the web help responsive output as well as for the PDF transformation developed by Oxygen, the one based on HTML and CSS. This one over here, and right, if we can open this publishing template. You notice it's consists in CSS and various resources. It's also worth mentioning that there's a web app called Stars Basket. The Oxygen Styles Basket. It's a free web application that allows you to visually customize the PDF and the web help. You know, just by choosing between various view modes, and on the right you see a preview, and afterwards when you click download you get this this publishing template, this archive. You just put it in your project and refer it like this, or you specify it in the transformation scenarios. We also have a filters directory, which is initially empty, but this is intended as a container where to put all of your DITA files. So if you profile your documents, I mean, for example, you have the documentation for multiple product models, or it's for various audiences like a technician user manual or end user manual, then to publish these deliverables, you need the DITA vals files. And as a best practice, we've created this filters container to place them here. Next to the framework concept in Oxygen, the framework is it's a configuration that contains things like actions defined for the author mode, or transformation scenarios. These are also configurations, but also various resources like CSS files or maybe XML schemas. Basically, everything needed by Oxygen to offer support, extensive support for a specific type of documents, like or XML vocabularies like DITA or DocBook. So in Oxygen, you have such a framework for DITA, another framework for DocBook, another for TI, and so on and so forth. And the initial way, the classical way of creating these frameworks was in the graphical user interface. You click new here in the document type associations, and you set up the framework. But in the not the last, but the previous one version of Oxygen, I think, we introduce a framework script. It's like a, we call it a framework extension script, but I guess it's more of a framework definition script. And with such a script, you can either create a new framework or extend an existing one, like the built-in DITA framework. And this is actually what we do for the lightweight DITA. We extend the DITA framework, and then we add, for example, we add a new CSS or maybe some new actions. And this framework definition script also works on multiple levels. So you can have an A framework that extends B, that extends C, and so on and so forth. And this is actually helpful in those situations where there's, for example, a CMS involved, like maybe this D is the built-in DITA framework in Oxygen, and C is the framework, the CMS extended version, the CMS extended the built-in framework, and afterwards B is the end user that also wants to make a couple of small changes to the framework, to the way, maybe to the author mode, use different color themes. And we have such framework definition script in our startup project. So here in custom settings, frameworks, DITA extensions, we have the DITA extension script, and you notice it extends the built-in DITA framework. We have a name, a description, a higher priority, so Oxygen will prefer this new framework. And then, for example, we tell Oxygen that there are some new templates in this extension that should be used, or new validation scenarios, some CSSs in the author mode. So yeah, so this is how all these resources are bound together. So the framework customizations contained in the startup projects, we have document templates, like I said. They reside here in the template directory. Document template, it's just a, like I said, an XML document. The content of the document is what you get when you use the template. You notice that this one uses this editor variable, the ID. It generates a unique ID. So Oxygen will expand these variables when you use the template. Next, there's a content completion configuration file at this location here. So with DITA, DITA has its own mechanisms for restricting and specializing, but sometimes people prefer not to go on that path. So Oxygen offers inner capability of restricting and customizing the proposals that are offered. And you do this in this content completion configuration file. So here, for example, we say that when a list item is inserted, you automatically put a paragraph in it. And we can test this here. Maybe insert a new paragraph, and we put a list test. And if we insert a new list item, you notice that it also has a paragraph in it, like a new list item. There's a P element in it. But yes, there are many more things that you can do. Like I said, you can restrict the elements that are proposed by content completion, or you can control the values that are offered for attributes, etc. The schematron business rules, like I mentioned in the beginning, this boils down to the style guide, that set of writing rules that exists in most companies. And the style guides tend to become quite large, so it can be difficult for a technical writer to learn it by heart and also apply everything from the style guide while they create content. So it's a good practice to automate these rules as much as possible. And one way to do that is with Schematron, which is an OASIS standard for writing such business rules. And this project contains such a Schematron file. So it uses XPath and this existing rule. I mean, it starts, it wants to be an example. You can, the idea is for you to write rules for your style guide, those that are present in your style guide. But this one says that in an ordered list, you should have more than one list item. It doesn't make sense to have just one list item. Probably should be a paragraph if it's just one list item. And it also offers a quick fix here, Schematron quick fixes. In this case, it's obviously to add another list item. That's one possibility. Another fix would be to replace it with a paragraph. So if I let's say if I put an ordered list and it has just one list item, you get this light bulb on the left. There's the red wiggly line as well, and you get here, you see the message, the human readable message that an ordered list should have more than one list item. This is the message that you've put there in the schematron rule. And you also have the quick fix that says add a new list item, right? And now the error is gone. The same thing would have been presented by this contextual action as well. So add a new list item. And for the author mode customization, we have some things, not much. We have a custom CSS just to give you an idea of the possibilities. It resides here in this folder. If we open it, you'll notice that it's just it uses a green foreground for your key references. So that's why here in this sample topic where we have a key reference, we use the product key. There's a green foreground here. Terminology checker checking. We have something on about this as well. If you take a look inside, there's this oxygen term checker folder, and in it there's a configuration file for the oxygen terminology checking add-on. So this add-on, it's not installed by default in Oxygen. To get it, you have to go to Help, Install New Add-ons, either connect all the available sites or just the default one. But here in the list, you'll see the terminology checker. It's grayed out in my case because it's already installed, so I cannot install it again. But just select it and then follow the installation procedure, and afterwards you'll get this side view, the terminology helper side view. If you don't see it, just go to Window, Show View, and select it from here. And the terminology checker reads the rules out of this this configuration file from here. In this case, we have an incorrect term, so if it finds the will be sequence in your documents, it will give you a heads up, and it will say that future tense should not be allowed. And we can see it in action if we put here this I will be and we see the entry here on the left that it says and if I'm somewhere else, if I click it, it will if I click it, it highlights the offending sequence of characters. You can find out more about the terminology checker add-on in our documentation, how to create such configuration files for it, and I think we also support Veil, YAML rules. So if you put the rules in that format, the terminology checker will know to to load them and to apply them. So thank you for bearing with me up until now. I hope you've found some interesting ideas on how to use project templates and also on how to implement DITA best practices with Oxygen. It would be nice maybe for community of users to create more such project templates. Maybe we could collect all of them in a GitHub repository so others would benefit from the best recommendations implemented in this Oxygen project. If Aline, if there are questions.
Yes, thank you, Alex, first of all, for your presentation. So let's continue by looking in the questions panel. Okay, we have a first question. Can the web help publishing template parameter point to a folder?
Yes, it can. So it can be either a zip archive or a folder, the folder that is usually contained that zip archive, and Oxygen will know to load either of them.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Can the same CSS be used for authoring view and for generating a PDF output? What you see is what you get, kind of an option.
Well, I think it's you need to you might have, let's say, similar rules, but in the, the publishing output would probably have more, I don't know. So the WYSIWYG in Oxygen is more like of a what you see is one way of presenting content. So the CSS, I would say the CSS should be created in thinking on how to make the editing more productive, you know, and how to help the user more, maybe with contextual actions. You know, you can put inline actions in the author mode. This is a sample one. It's a bit crowded, but you get an idea. You know, instead of having actions on the toolbar, you put them right in the content of the document where they are intended to be used. So the technical writer sees it and it's more accessible to him in here, right? So I think this is how you should design the author mode. And that's how you should create your CSS files for the author mode.
Thank you for this extended answer. Another audience member is asking you if you have any suggestion on how he can transform his current DITA project layout into this best practice layout.
Well, if you already have an Oxygen project, then just open it inside Oxygen and make the changes. I mean, it's the project. It's a configuration file that sits in a folder, and just change it. If you've seen something in this DITA Startup project that I've presented, then you can duplicate it quite easily in your own project. You know, just create that structure that I've presented, set some options inside Oxygen. You go to options, preferences, select a preferences page and switch it to project options, make the required adjustments. So there's nothing stopping you.
Okay, another question just came in. Um, our audience member says that she works from DITA map to see topics in context where they are easy to find. Is that still possible when a project is used?
Yes, yes, of course it is.
Okay. Um,
Yes.
another. Do you have something to add to this answer, or we can go to the next question?
So yes, the answer is yes, it can be used like that, and also, like I said, from the project view, these actions can also be used because you have the main files, already set up.
Okay. The latest question that we got until now. After writing many manuals using XML Editor, I've never used the reusable components. Can you provide an example?
Um, an example for the reusable components view, or
Yes, yes, I think this is what the audience member means. If he can give us more examples, we would be
Mhm.
grateful.
Right. Um, so when we refer to the reusable component, when I talk about reusable components, they are basically any data element that have an ID, that has an ID. So with data, if you have an ID on an element, then that element can be reused. You can create a content reference to it. Actually, if we go here and we reuse that node, under the hood, you'll notice that you have a node, but it has this conref attribute. That's how um, content is being reused in data as a data mechanism. So in theory, any uh, data element with an ID can be reused and could be a reusable component. But like I said, the best practice here is to not reuse across your entire topics, but instead put the reusable blocks inside dedicated topics, the so-called warehouse topics. And when I say reusable components, I refer to the data elements from within this reusable warehouse topics. Um, I hope I made myself clear. So and how you use them? Well, like I said, it's just a matter of it's you see them here in the data reusable components, and whenever you want to use it, you click insert on it. You can search if there are multiple of them. Of course, there's another way of reusing content in data and in Oxygen. You have this action on the toolbar, the reuse content action, and in it you can select the topic from where you want to bring content, from where you want to reuse content, and you'll see them here. You get a little preview and then you click insert. But the data reusable components view, it's a handier, it's more easier to use, and again it avoids these spaghetti references, because in theory, using the action on the toolbar, you could um, browse for any topic, even one that you should not reuse from it, because like I said, the best practices say that only reuse from specific topics, right? So you could create such spaghetti references. With the DITA reusable components, you will not, because it will only present those um, those components that are intended to be reused. And also an interesting action here is the search references, because if I want to, I want to if I want to make a change inside this um, reusable component, I should first inspect all the places where I have reused it and make sure that my change makes sense in all of those places. And I can do that with this action. So I say search references, and then I can go through all the places where I have reused it, and after I make sure my change makes sense in all of them, I can go and make the change.
Thank you, Alex. Apparently, this was the last questions that we had. We will wait a couple of seconds just to see if something else comes up. Until then, our audience members are thanking you, Alex, for your extensive answers and for the additional details. And also, I want to thank Radu Koravu for providing our audience with some answers behind the scene. Alex, I will take back control as I see that
Yes,
no
please.
question is coming in. Just a wave of many thank yous
Well,
are
thank you
coming your
for your
way.
kind words.
Okay, I will take back control. As I said in the beginning of the presentation, you will find the recording for today's event on the event page, along with the samples and slides that Alex used. And also, if you have any questions regarding today's presentation, or question will come up after the presentation is over, I encourage you to use the Oxygen feedback platform that can be found here on the very same page. So, going further, let me remind you um, that you can meet the rest of our of the Oxygen team in the future events that will take place in chronological order. The first one on November 17th, the new Oxygen compare and merge scripts. In this webinar, we will cover in detail this newly implemented scripting support, as well as showing you examples on how to use it efficiently. And we won't be stopping here, as we will also be taking a look at how you can integrate it with Oxygen XML Editor. Going further, on November 24th, we will have the next episode from today's series, working with DITA in Oxygen, and it will be called Migrating to DITA and Refactoring, presented by our colleague Cosmin Duna. And on December 8th, we will have add-ons you can use for technical writing, where we will meet again Alex, as this webinar will aim to take a deeper look at some of the most popular add-ons that are available and the other types of benefits they provide, how easy it is to install them, as well as offering some ideas for how they can be integrated into your particular authoring workflow. So, Alex, I am excited to meet again during that live event. So, reaching the end of today's webinar, I want to thank you again Alex, for your amazing presentation.
Thank you, Aline. Thank you all for attending it.
Yes, exactly. This is what I was going to say. I want to give a big, big thank you to all of our audience members, to thank them for joining us again on this live event. And until next time, I don't think there are any words to say. Then just stay safe and taking in consideration your respective time zones. Have a nice day or evening. Bye bye.
Bye bye.